It began as it always did, you opening your eyes and not knowing where you were. Your body stood in the middle of a meadow. The wind fluttered lazily, the scent of fresh water running through it. Your shadow stretched long behind you, aching to understand what this place was. You could not help but feel something was off about the scenery. The meadow was astonishingly green, coming just higher than your ankles. The grass rustled with the light breeze. You could see specklings of birds flying above your head. There, nestled in the horizon, was the dwindling light of the sun. The sun's rays gave you a sense of protection, even though they were sparse. With the sunset, the once pure white of the clouds had settled into delicate pinks and resembled the fluffy flesh of a ripe peach. Looking down at yourself, everything seemed to be normal, but your clothes were different. Against your skin lay a soft tunic the colour of beige. The sleeves fell just past your elbows, the hem of your shirt asymmetrical, dipping to a point over your right hip. You wore trousers in the same beige hue. They were loose, billowing with large amounts of gathered fabric. Then they wrapped tightly midway down your calves. On your feet, dark brown laced ankle boots. A belt plaited to look like twine was snug against your waist. Hanging from it was a pouch embroidered with a diagram of what appeared to be a dissected flower in scarlet thread. Draped over your collarbones and around your shoulders was a simple scarf of clay red. It smelt faintly of an autumn you longed to forget. Every single garment was crafted beautifully, tailor-made to the exact measurements of your body. How? Who had done this for you? Though some distance away, you spied an old stone bridge which crossed a river. On the other side lay a thick forest. All you could see was the forest. All there was the forest, dark and foreboding. You had to decide whether to cross the bridge or stay in the meadow. You thought quietly for a moment. Assessing your surroundings, there was nothing but miles of green land. Far off in the distance were the peaks of mountains, too far to reach before the sun went down. Mountains would bring nothing of value. What could you do with a mountain? And so you paced towards the bridge, believing somehow crossing over you would recognize this new place and navigate your way home. Well, you had made it to the river, and yes, standing before you was an ordinary bridge made from grey weathered stone. There were no markings or symbols to suggest a direction or a location to where this place was. However, it was donned by tiny green leaves of ivory vines, vines that flickered gently in the breeze, almost waving, greeting you. You stepped onto the bridge, walking across. The gentle trickling of the river beneath ushered you along. When you reached halfway over the bridge, at the peak of its arch, your neck lurched down with such gravitational force it almost snapped. Your body buckled under the weight of itself. Every limb throbbed in agonizing pain. It was no use trying to fight it. Gravity held you taut to the bridge. You struggled with all of your might to take step after step, every cell of your body dragging you closer and closer to the stone. You knew if you even stopped for a moment, you would be stuck on this bridge forevermore. This was the cruel truth. In this excruciating slow pace, you realized your feet were liquefying. Consumed with horror, you began to panic. The tendons in your arms stretched from your torso, your ribcage pulled away from your spine. You could not breathe. Your throat was on fire. Tears pricked at your eyes, and they were being slowly forced out of their sockets. A loud pop inside your ear snapped you back to your senses. In front of you, the bridge began to crumble and fall, pulling you with it. Stones shattered across the ground as cracks grew in size. You began to shake. You had to get out of there, and you had to get home. You screamed. With one final push, your feet hit the soil on the other side, and a force launched you forward. Gravity had returned to normal again. You had made it. You cleared your throat and coughed heavily, your lungs now able to refill with air. Blinking away tears, legs shaking, you began to assess the damage done to your body, but there was none. Stunned, you turned back to the bridge. It had not collapsed. It was just there. No sight of damage and no sound of crumbling rock. It remained exactly as you first saw it. You shook your head in anger, in disbelief. You survived this traumatic event, and yet there was no evidence to show that you had even been through it. The river appeared unchanged by the influence of the bridge. The sound of the water helped to calm you down. There was no way you were taking the bridge back, even if you needed to go back. After a few moments of silence, you surveyed the new surroundings. The trees of the forest stood tall, casting shadows over the clearing where they were rooted. Their canopies allowed only a fraction of sunlight to escape their grasp. Their trunks too wide to wrap your arms around, and their roots thicker than a human thigh. A splash behind you, something in the river. To the right of the bridge, a column of water rushed upwards, small but steady, like a water feature in a garden. But then it grew thicker, faster, louder. The water, once clear, darkened to a grey, then shimmered in silver. Something was inside of it, something yearning to break through. The water moved closer towards the riverbed, collapsing on impact with the wet soil. A tremendous splash, as if a whale had plummeted into the river. Now the water and the land were painted with silver. like liquid mercury. You stared, transfixed by the water flowing over the grass, following its path with your eyes. Suddenly it rushed away, and there, standing, emerged the small body of a child. This child clambered out of the river, the steps sloshing in the silted water. You took a step back instinctively, not knowing what to make of the scene before you. It was a sight like no other. It was obvious she wasn't like you, human. This strange girl, this creature with the appearance of a little girl, dragged her small frame towards you. Her most noticeable feature was her hair. It was ridiculously long, trailing behind her for several feet. It was white. No, translucent. It strangely reminded you of plastic. The tips of her appendages were greying, as though she buried her hands and feet in charcoal. A pastel gradient into the palest of skin, a stark contrast clashing so close together. She was dressed in an oversized, long-sleeved, platinum coat with 2 grey, pebble-like buttons at the waist. Heavy-lidded eyes were coated with thick eyelashes in the same grey as her fingers and toes. It was then you realized she was staring at you. At you. At you. What does she want? What should you do? Nothing came to mind. Every thought you had radiated with fear. Had she emerged from the river to finish what the bridge could not? Without warning, she began to run straight in your direction. You had to think fast. Still winded, you tried to dash to your left, but it wasn't far enough, and she sprinted past you. The only thing to touch you was a spray of water hitting across your exposed skin, like a dog shaking out its wet fur. As she ran past, puddles christened the ground with every step she took towards the woods. The girl grappled a towering tree right at the entrance of the forest and ran up it with inhuman speed. This watery child jumped in and out of the tall, sombre trees, her face glowing in the setting sun. A giggle, sweet as lemongrass, punctured the air as her hands clasped the trunk, smiling with unashamed glee. You could see her teeth, sparse, almost pearlescent.
This is the only time I can say hello to all of you, and not just your roots.
She spoke so softly, it intertwined with the breeze. After placing her ear to the bark of the tree, she nodded, snapped off 2 branches and slid back down to the ground. Dropping the branches, she grabbed the ends of her hair, rinsing out the water like a wet cloth. As she stamped her feet too, more water collected into the earth below. She did this several times until the ground below turned into a giant muddy puddle. The girl plunged one branch into the wet ground, and the other branch was scraped against it, up and down, again and again, as fast as her little limbs could go. Suddenly, Hundreds of shiny seeds wriggled free of their muddy prison, reaching the surface, glimmering in the sun. When she was happy with the number of seeds the earth provided, the girl returned to her tree, slinked around the trunk, and waited. Above your head, in the canopy of the forest, a dark mist pulsed and shivered. Then with one sudden movement, the colour red came pouring out. Your ears thrummed with the beating of 100 wings. Scarlet birds dived to the ground, each bird collecting a seed before soaring up, high into the sky and flying up and away in the direction of the mountains. The violent wind from the mass of birds almost whipped your scarf from your neck. When you looked back, the girl stood motionless by the patch of earth, and just as quickly as the birds, she dived hands first into the mud, wrenched the last of the seeds out, and stuffed them into her coat. Figuring it was now or never, you took a hesitant step forward toward the girl. "Hello?" Finally, your voice arrived. The girl stopped, her gaze still buried into her pockets full of seeds. With mud-coated hands, she offered you a portion of her treasure.
"Seed?"
Shaking your head no, the girl erected herself, wiping her hands clean of the thick mud on the back of her coat. Her eyes locked onto yours, and a chill seized your spine completely.
"Yes?"
she probed. "Sorry, You paused in trepidation, wondering what could be said to such a creature as to not offend it. I've never seen someone coming out of... I've never met a river person before."
"I'm a river spirit."
"Oh, is that what she was? A river spirit?" You studied this young girl. She seemed too solid to be a river spirit, for lack of a better word. Well, you'd never met a spirit in your life. You didn't know the criteria of what constituted a river spirit. You thought better to question it, except when you did. "What is a river spirit?" you asked, as nicely as you could.
"I am everything that is not physically the river."
You blinked owlishly. What does that mean? In her wormy nature, the girl, a little hesitant at first, as if she was not certain how to answer your question, eventually gave in.
"It means I can go where the river is, but to strays, to perish, I can never go too far."
If you mean you and the river are separate, then who are you?
"My name is Clear Eyes."
Clear Eyes? What an odd name. You inquired if that was what the river was called too.
"No, but it's what I'm called. The river has been given many names through many different tongues, but I am Clear Eyes."
She beamed, throwing her hands in the air, only for her sleeves to quickly cover them. Taking a generous step towards you, Clear Eyes studied you intently, and that was when you noticed it. Her eyes, the irises were giant, double the size they were supposed to be. No, she had 2 irises. Each was a distinctive shade of blue. The outer band was the colour of the sky on a winter's morning, and the inner band was a greyish blue, a storm hovering over a sea. Clear Eyes clasped her hands to her chest, trying to contain her excitement as she gasped.
Oh, you're new, completely new, shining like a beacon. I will give you a wisdom piece. Do not ask for someone's name. Each name is a gift. Let them gift it to you and give them yours in return.
You thanked her, though you weren't sure what you were thanking her for. Strange. Now that you noticed her appearance more, Clear Eyes did have a natural trait of producing water. It was constantly trickling from her hair and the tips of her fingers. She kept hopping from one foot to the other, so her watery puddles did not cause her to sink into the ground. But there was still the matter of where you were supposed to go, and if it was safe to go anywhere. You were not going over that bridge again. Speaking of which, you pointed behind you, your arms still shaking. That bridge, you huffed. What is wrong with that bridge? Clear Eyes twisted her mouth in confusion.
I don't know. I didn't build it.
Ah, well, yes, that would be true. A river spirit wouldn't be able to affect much regarding their surroundings, you assumed. It wouldn't matter anyway, as long as you did not encounter any more bridges like that on your travels.
You are looking for answers, but you seek them in the wrong places. A terrible mistake to make, but learning from mistakes is the best thing you can do.
Where should I be looking then? You glanced around.
That depends on the question you want to be answered. If you want to learn the knowledge that you have been segregated from, listen to the wildflower, the darkened pockets of a forest, the forgotten stream, the waning lake, and the pebble you skimmed across it when you were a child.
You thought to yourself if there was any burning questions within you, but the only thing you could think of was why you were here, and where here was. Where am I?
Where are you? I don't know. Not all of you is here. It appears as if you're everywhere.
Clear Eyes gave you a studied look, a gaze which pierced right through, a gaze which frightened you. What was this spirit looking at? What did she see when they saw you? Feeling an uncomfortable warmth rise to your face, you stammered, "Well, what do I look like to you?"
1,000 faces. I can't make out one feature of you.
You recoiled, although you tried to do it as subtly as you could. Glancing down, your hands looked like your own, and so did your body. Clear Eyes was an oxymoron, it seemed. Although who's to say what is true reality? You only see through your eyes, remember? Clear Eyes whistled through the gaps of her teeth.
You've strayed far from home. I hope you find your way. Perhaps you came to the wrong river, or perhaps you were right to come here. It's strange, but I feel so happy you came to see me first.
Holding her coat steady, Clear Eyes snapped one of her buttons off, the sound identical to an apple being plucked from a tree.
I know what I have to do. it'll never be safer than it is with you.
She handed you this pebble button, no bigger than your thena, the soft flesh where your thumb meets your palm. It was smooth but not entirely opaque. At a glance, it looked like a flat circular stone, surprisingly warm to the touch. You remembered the pouch on your waist and carefully slid the button inside. "Thank you," you murmured.
Now that you have one, it is the only thing keeping me together.
You swallowed. What? What would happen if I lost it? She did not answer you, but stared at the tree, waiting for a response.
The trees will help you find your roots.
The entrance of the forest beckoned you, a soft, inviting glow emitted from within. Your very being compelled you to find the place where the forest called out to you. The path was well defined before you, dry and earthen, covered in a layer of brown dust. As your body entered, under the canopies, under the shadow of the trees, a feeling of peace flooded your entire chest. You heard a familiar laugh echoing through the wind. Familiar? Maybe it led to home. You looked over your shoulder to see your watery companion smiling, yet her vast eyes betrayed the tiniest fraction of sadness.
They are waiting to show you the way. Don't delay now.
The trees responded in kind by waving their branches in a cooling breeze. The trees were creaking, gradually growing taller, each tiny leaf producing a bit more cover for you, and the branches, their skeletal fingers intertwined, clamping overhead, tighter with every gust of wind. And so you walked forward into the darkening forest, its entrance slowly disappearing too. Clear-eyed, waved farewell and cried out a goodbye, along with a sound that was almost your name. Hey everyone, Silly here. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you liked it, and if you did, please subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. I'm currently working on the next video. I think you'll like it. It has an autumnal feel, which the Northern Hemisphere is gently falling into. But don't worry, I'm not going to say any more and spoil the story for you. But it's going to be weird, like this one. So you have been warned. Okay, I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.